Welcome. You are tuned into CrossTalk. My name is Kevin Tocci. I will be your host for this segment. What is CrossTalk? Well, the idea of it, the purpose, the general purpose when the show was created was to be a catch-all for things that are happening in both Whitman and Hanson, the two communities that we serve so proudly. Whether it's we're talking about an upcoming event or we're speaking with folks who are running for office, the idea is for us to be able to sit down and find out what is happening. Today, we're very fortunate to be speaking with Whitman Selectman or Whitman Select Board member, Mr. Justin Evans is joining us. Sir?
Kevin, thanks for having me.
I think the last time you and I were outside, we were some 800 feet that way, just over the backside of the cameras is Town Hall. We actually did something in front of Town Hall.
Yeah, we did. That was, I think I was running for re-election at the time.
You were. And you were successful, obviously.
I was successful, yeah. I'm in my second term. It's been going pretty well so far.
So the idea of our conversation is there's been a little bit of news in regards to a site that everybody loves going to, especially around this time of year. That is the Peaceful Meadows property has been put up for sale. And since it has been announced that it's going to be it's going to be up for auction, a lot of folks are wondering what will become of it. Being somebody who is an elected official, I'm sure you were one of the first people that someone reached out to and was like, what's going on?
Yeah, so I've been hearing from a lot of people in the community with the same general sentiment. I've always loved Peaceful Meadows. I know they've been there for 61 years. It's been within the family, and they're looking to retire and putting up for sale. So a lot of concern about what is going to happen to 50 plus acres of farmland, a couple residential properties, and that big commercial building in front. So that's been the general feedback. I don't think I've heard from anyone actually interested in purchasing the property. It's just been what's going to happen.
Knowing that economic development is a key component to how the community runs, knowing that your board has been working ever so hard over the past 4 or 5 years, come up with a strategic plan, find ways to generate new revenue, find ways to lure new businesses. Is this a bit of a setback for the community if in fact this is sold off and not necessarily kept as a thriving ice cream business?
It's certainly a loss for the community, at least on the it's a big part of the town. It's a big part of the town's history. The Peaceful Meadows as both a dairy farm and an ice cream parlor. I don't know from an economic perspective. I guess it depends on what happens to the property, how it's actually going to affect the town. But where it's been operating as a farm for a very long time, you may not know, but agricultural land is taxed at a much lower rate. So depending on what happens, the town itself could actually see more tax revenue coming out of this. Not that that's necessarily what we're looking to do with that area, but it's a little early to say how it's going to impact the town.
Have you heard? Your eyes are everywhere. You're somebody who pays attention to what's going on in the community, especially when it comes to social media. I think that was one of the things that I complimented you on, is because you were somebody who was able to get folks to see your message on social media. Are you seeing things on social media and what the residents are hoping becomes of the property?
Yeah, so I've seen quite a bit on social media wondering really just how this process works. It's going out to auction, but because it is the largest portion of it is agricultural land under a tax provision called 61A, the town itself will get the right of first refusal. So much like Abington saw with the Griffin Dairy Farm, a couple decades ago, or Rockland with the McCarthy Farm, the town will have an opportunity to match the winning offer. If the zoning of the property is going to change. If a farm comes in and buys it, there's no opportunity for the town to step in.
So what happens if in fact somebody does buy it and wants to do something then other than farm on it? What kind of a process does someone have to go through if in fact, let's say they want to come in and they want to build housing units? We know that housing is a big problem here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Is that something that you look at village zoning, you do like Rockland has done. What are some of the avenues that can be done when it comes to zoning for that property?
So here where it's zoned as agricultural, I'm actually not sure what kind of, it's within the highway zoning district. Some of it might be in sort of the general residential, far enough set back. So if the land itself were to change from agricultural to a residential property, there would be some kind of back taxes owed for, for the lower tax rate that it had benefited from for the last, 60 years. I don't know the details on that, but it would also trigger the right of first refusal for the town. So that's sort of the area we're looking at now. I think that action itself would come to the Board of Selectmen for approval, whether we would like to intervene and match the offer, or put together something, or reassign our rights of first refusal to either a nonprofit conservation agency, or perhaps the Commonwealth, the county, maybe the city of Brockton would like to purchase some farmland in Whitman. But there's a couple of different things that could happen. But if the town of Whitman were to choose, depending on where the auction comes in, to step in and purchase the property ourselves, we'd have to look at what other towns around us have done. And I mean, for any kind of funding to that level, it would take a town meeting. So the actual time period from when the town receives the letter of an intent to sell the property to no longer be agricultural land would trigger a 120-day clock. And luckily enough, the auction's planned for the end of August. We have a special town meeting tentatively planned for the middle school project about 60 days past that. So we have all of the pieces in place if the town were to want to act and purchase the property.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And since the last time you and I talked, just a kind of a side note, congratulations to the town now at being able to build a new DPW building.
Yeah, that's been a long time coming. This is our second go at it after a couple of decades. And the building itself is about as old as Fenway Park. So anyone who, without nearly as much upkeep as Fenway's had, this is going to be huge for the town, for the DPW workers, and just for the ability to maintain our own equipment that we're able to provide so much good services for, parks and highways, water, sewer. So that's just a huge achievement, and I'm so happy the town agreed with me that this was the right time to do it.
Yeah, if you just tuned in, we are fortunate to be speaking with Justin Evans. He is a member of the Whitman Select Board, or Board of Selectmen, and he's kind of given us basically kind of his scoop on what's happening with Peaceful Meadows. If you were able to have a little guidance when it comes to this parcel of land or this business farm, what would you like to see become of it? I mean, what do you think would be best? You've talked a couple of times already during our short conversation about maybe the town buying it and maybe squirreling it away. Is that something the town has a number of parcels of land kind of tucked away just in case, or?
We do have some open space and some not necessarily quite conservation land, but some land like this. The Alice Carleton land that is both in Whitman and Rockland. The town of Whitman owns. It was donated from the Carleton family through the Girl Scouts, sort of indirectly, and that's been a topic of conversation at a couple of recent Board of Selectmen meetings. We're still the Board of Selectmen until a special town meeting may choose to change our name, also at the end of October, where a private soccer organization is looking to purchase the Rockland parcel, or maybe now lease the Rockland parcel, to develop fields. So we do have some land like that. My initial reaction when I heard this was I was really grateful that the citizens of Whitman passed the Community Preservation Act a couple of years ago.
Yep.
Because now if we were to choose to purchase it, we would have a funding mechanism. We've only been collecting revenue there for the last 2+ years, so there's only a couple $100,000. But community preservation, you are allowed to bond large open space purchases and use future CPC revenue to pay down the bond. So there are a couple of mechanisms I've seen some towns, not necessarily around us, but some other towns in the state use to leverage CPC funds. Actually, Hanson may have done bonding for the Plymouth County Hospital land. But there's a couple of mechanisms there. I think my initial reaction was I'd like to see it preserved as open space. There's so little of it left in Whitman. We're sitting in probably the most iconic one.
Beautiful.
But between there's been so much development, and as you mentioned, housing is a big need, and we're looking at complying with the MBTA communities law. We're trying to draw the additional housing in certain zones in town, not necessarily in the farmland. So it's a bit of a balancing act to see, where to develop. We don't currently have a housing production plan that draws that out specifically. I'd like to see the town adopt one soon. But I think, at least initially, I'd like to see that land preserved as either open space and kind of recreation space. But again, that all kind of depends on, if Amazon were to come in and purchase land for a warehouse at a couple $1 million, we don't have the money to match it, and that would probably be a boon commercial-wise for the town. They'd immediately step in and be one of the largest employers. I haven't heard this. This is just
Sure.
Examples.
So I didn't have a chance for you to prep for this question.
Yeah.
And you may not know the information off the top of your head, but one of the things that, federal law, when it comes to affordable housing, every community has to at least have up to 10% of their housing stock be affordable housing. Do you have any idea where Whitman sits at this moment when it comes to affordable housing in that 10% number?
So the last time I checked, Whitman was between 3 and 4%, and that was when we tentatively started drafting a housing production plan a couple of years ago that hasn't been approved. For towns to so being under that 10% threshold means that a 40B developer could potentially come in, purchase it, and sort of demand that they get built, overruling the town's zoning protections and going to the state. I guess that's kind of the worst case scenario for planning it. Yeah, but it happens. But there are a couple of, getting to the 10% affordable housing would be one sort of lever against that, so you no longer get that confliction. Having a standing housing production plan that says we will grow to our 10% number over X number of years is sort of another tool that we could have in place, we don't right now.
Okay. What about business-wise? Do you see that those properties being something that could help? Knowing that Whitman is is it a 90 residential, 10%, or is it a sub 80?
It's like 89, 11, something like that. We're pretty close to 90-10. That could be really helpful. I think, the way the auction, at least to my understanding now, it's still pretty early in the process, but the way the auction's set up right now is to sort of split it into 4 parcels. There's the 2 residential parcels across the street, and then the ice cream shop, the commercial parcel. I think at least I would love to see another ice cream shop come in, and if they choose not to operate a farm, at least purchase that commercial space and maintain some ice cream in the town of Whitman. Maybe purchasing their ice cream from Richardson's like Heidi's does in Hanson.
So what would you say, what is your fondest memories of Peaceful Meadows, whether it's a particular ice cream that it doesn't matter the time of year, I'm going over to get mint chocolate chip, or I'm going over to get M&M ice cream, like our camera person Paul, who loves going over there and getting it. Talk to me about that.
I'm a vanilla frap guy, and so every couple of weeks I'll be driving by on the way home from work and just, it's warm outside, feel, the need to stop by and get a frap. But it's just such a staple of the community. Even a couple of weeks ago for my mother's birthday, we picked up a Sunday pack from Peaceful Meadows. So I grew up going to watch the cows there. It's just, I think that's probably the biggest memory is, after soccer games, going over there with the team or my family and just watching the cows, eating ice cream and hanging out outside.
I have to say most times it was like smelling the cows because, there's a little bit of a residue for the cows to, make their milk. Anything else that we want to touch upon in regards to Peaceful Meadows, this being a community staple for 60 plus years, and what if moving forward?
I think really just, I understand it. We saw Menard's Jewelers sell recently or retire recently as well. For these long-time community staples, eventually they retire. And I just wish the family well, and nothing against them. I understand the reason, and they've had such a successful business, they're able to do this. So I think it is a good thing, even though you're going to hear a lot of complaints about it.
Well, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to share with me your thoughts, the news about Peaceful Meadows and what will happen, or what's some of the conversation, and knowing that you're a leader in this community. I felt that it was important for us to sit down and kind of, actually I think we both reached out to each other simultaneously, like, hey, you want to talk about something? Yeah, I was going to reach out to you. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time and being willing to do so. We want to thank you for tuning into programs like this, Crosstalk, as we try to bring you some of the latest information as we're able to sit down and have conversations. That's the idea of this particular show. Until our next show, you have been tuned into Crosstalk. My name's Kevin Tocci. For Paul Watson, have yourself a great day.